You are now tuned into Flippin' the Birds, a Philly Sports Network podcast.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome all to episode 162 of Flippin' the Birds. I'm Brian Cameron alongside Eric Reese, Zach Chavalella, and this is the post-Super Bowl pod. Did not have a pod on Tuesday because, hey, Valentine's Day, I'm not trying to get divorced. Neither is Zach, neither is Eric. And yeah, I mean, I think we need a little time to kind of like let this mellow out, right? I mean, a lot of things happened this week. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but my 5-year-old broke down crying after the game. I think she was like 5 minutes after the game, she realized like, wait, the Eagles lost. I'm like, yeah. She like just bawled out in tears, and I've never seen her care about the sport. But I wasn't so mad or disappointed because it's like, shit. Like Jalen Hurts went toe to toe with Pat Mahomes, and like Jalen Hurts is legit. Like this is a legit team. I mean, how did you guys feel after the game?
I kind of felt like there was possibility that, I know that the MVP never really goes, or I don't think maybe ever went to a losing team, but Jalen Hurts played so well. I was like, dude, he should be the MVP anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But like, that's going to be me being completely biased. Like, of course it was going to be a Chief. They won. But as far as the feeling of the game, outside of the nasty taste, that the way that it ended with the penalty, like I don't think you call it in that time of the game. I don't think it's really called that often. I don't think the referee would have called it on their own accord if Pat Mahomes isn't sitting there pointing it out. But I think a lot of fan bases think that Eagles fans are, living and dying on, oh, that blown call. I mean, whatever it was, he said he was holding. I guess it's really not a blown call. But like that call right there lost us the game. Like that's not true. What we're mad about with that is it did definitely not give us the chance to tie up the game where Kansas City probably would have got the field goal anyway. And it probably would have been like, a minute and a half, minute 45 or whatever on the clock. That's mostly what everybody's mad about with that play call. But I have to acknowledge that like the more that I analyze this game, Kansas City defeated Philadelphia. And it had a lot to do with what we'll get into later about, in my opinion, a couple of, not just my opinion. I think it's actually probably a popular opinion that in the second half is just the adjustments that aren't made by Gannon.
Yeah.
Like a lot of it has to do with that. That punt return really sucks, There's a few things that, a turnover by Hurts on that fumble, there's a few things that like that, but really, it was the turnover. It doesn't help, but I think it's the lack of adjustments in the long run that really, if you want to blame on like one top thing, it was that was it.
Am I the only one who wanted Brett Kern to start in the Super Bowl even before the game even was played?
The punters are the same. They're the exact same. I didn't really think of any thought.
I
gotta disagree.
I hear where you're going with that, but I didn't
has
think much.
Performed a lot better than Siposs the entire season, and on top of that, more importantly, Siposs hadn't had a single game between getting hurt and coming back. Like,
exactly.
I mean, I'm sure they wouldn't have cleared him if he wasn't healthy. I'm not saying that necessarily, but more so like Kern had been fine. Why are you switching it up? Like, that's the thing, is that like keep it simple, stupid. Just you had a punter who just wasn't messing up. He wasn't great, but he wasn't killing your team. Just keep rolling with the guy. I don't understand why that was such a hard decision, and it was something that even at the time I didn't know it was going to bite the Eagles as badly as the way it ended up doing. But I mean, I just felt like that was a pretty clear decision that they should have just kept going with Kern. What has if Aaron Siposs, was freaking like Marcus King like out there, like sure, like that's a reason to bring him back, but I mean, there was no reason to switch out Kern for Siposs, if you ask me. So that was one thing from the get-go. But as far as how I processed and handled the loss, I think you both bring up some really good points. Like Brian, there is that how great Jalen Hurts was. not interested in moral victories. And I'm not saying that you are either.
No,
I'm just saying that for myself. The thing that I fully agree with Eric is that what really lost the game, it's not the holding call at the end of the game, even though everyone knows that it was the wrong call, whether or not it occurred or not. It's just a call that you don't make, on top of the fact that there were illegal hands to the face on the offense on that very same play. However, you just wipe that away. You can't argue that. The bigger issue at hand is the fact that through the entire second half, the Kansas City Chiefs made adjustments, and Jonathan Gannon's defense did not. So I tweeted out during the game, leave Gannon in Arizona. Turns out Harry Roseman very much felt the same way. Didn't even let him back on the plane. Said that you are interviewing while you're down here. And it's history. So I feel good about the future. I still feel, I don't even know if like sick is the right word. I'm just kind of like dead. It's that typical Philadelphia, like dead in the soul kind of like that we just feel from time to time, because that's just how Philly sports usually go. You know, it's very like post Sixers Raptors second round of the playoffs Kawhi shot. Like, it's very much that kind of feeling, like losing even though that you could have won, just sinking into a hole and just wanting to not exist. That's kind of still where I'm at with it. But that being said, it's a huge bright future for Philadelphia. So I do feel good about the future.
And I definitely don't disagree with any of that at all. And especially the Brett Kern and Sepal's take, because it again what's working for you, just stick to it. Like it's what got you here, right?
Yeah.
But the issue is what also got them here is the way they've been cruising. Jonathan Gannon for all season long, we were saying this team sucks at making adjustments from offensive standpoint and from defensive standpoint. They're terrible at making adjustments. And it bit them in the ass at the end. I mean, the offense, it was probably the best offense that we've seen. I mean, again, like Jalen Hurts, like I was at a loss of words for how great he was actually playing on this stage. Like I wasn't expecting him to, to be this phenomenal, right? But and at the end of the day, we also spoke about, how reserved he was against the Giants, and the 49ers were not throwing that ball. And he threw deep passes to Devontae, deep passes to AJ, and you're seeing this kid just take off, and it just sucks because they were going to win that game. Philly was going to win that game. They had everything they needed. They had the lead. They went into the half. It was 24-14 or something like that. They had everything in the bag, but it bit them in the ass that the Eagles organization, that Nick Sirianni, they trusted Jonathan Gannon that much, and that was the issue at hand. If Sirianni's not calling plays on offense, then you have to have your hands in the pot when things are not going right, and things were not going right from the start of the second half. Yeah.
I feel like that's it. Like, what more can you say? Like, it's pretty like simple and straightforward. I think we all know what the problem was. We all know what the problem was going to be going into this game. The thing that's bailed out Gannon time and time again, and we see it, in the comments as well. Like, their front four has been tremendous, and especially with the rotations that they had. And so it's kind of hidden the flaws of Gannon's Sharman cover two. So with that being the case, with the field conditions the way that they were, and both teams are playing on that field, again, not saying anything about that.
That's the most
However,
important part.
It does impact the Eagles more so just because of what their team tries to do.
Exactly.
That's just a shame of what the situation was, the reality of the situation. So Hassan Reddick couldn't even, he should have blown up their no-name right tackle, that absolute dreck of a right tackle that they were putting out there in Kansas City. But the thing is, Hassan can't bend without losing his footing. And he's not a mauler. Like, he's a bend technique, like high energy hustle.
He's a speed rusher.
Not. He's exactly. So that kind of guy, virtually neutralized if you're playing in a swamp. So
yeah,
that obviously you have Brandon Graham, who's less effective for similar reasons. Josh Sweat, again, similar reasons. Just from the outside, you just can't get that bend, and you need that in order to create some sort of pressure. And as Patrick Mahomes, it's very tough to create pressure for Patrick Mahomes. but you had virtually none when some of your best players are in fact on that line. So it's just it sucks that nature kind of took them out, and I don't know why the NFL experimented with the field in a Super Bowl game. That makes no sense to me. But it is what it is. That part, it is what it is. The problem is that Gannon he just didn't alter the game plan after that. He kept everything the exact same. And the team has ignored special teams all year. And once again, it bites them. Like these are the things. There is no joy to be had in this because the Eagles lost the freaking Super Bowl. But there's a vindication to be had that, freaking fans, freaking blogger boys, and whomever the hell else on Twitter has been saying the entire year that these are the issues with the Philadelphia Eagles. Special teams play, the lack of adjustments defensively, that Jonathan Gannon is not this wonderkin that everyone seems to think that he is. He sucked when he didn't have players last year. He has great players this year, and all of a sudden the defense is playing well. No crap. Any defense with quality players is going to play well. So to have this entire game just fall apart because the man could not make a single adjustment, it shows that maybe the general public knows a little bit what the hell that they're talking about as well. Like, listen, like coaches are coaches for a reason. I'm not trying to take anything like that away. But you can't ignore obvious issues and sweep it under as if the public does not know. The public, we're not coaches, but we may be more educated than some of you might think. So it's just unendingly frustrating. That does not bring any kind of joy. That only brings further frustration because it is so painfully, stupidly obvious. And yet the team refused to acknowledge that situation for the entire year. And guess what? It cost them a Super Bowl.
I think the only person that I ever really listened to on Philadelphia radio that really continued to back Jonathan Gannon all the time was John Kincaid. And each time I always heard an argument about Gannon, it was always like, oh, well, this Eagles defense is ranked top 10. I'm like, yeah, but it has a lot more to do with the players than anything that he's conjured up. And yeah, I mean, you make great points about that. But yeah, what you were saying about the field and how it affected our speed rushers, especially off the edge, it's not an excuse. It affected Kansas City, all the same. It just sucks when that's the highlight of both teams' defenses, and especially Philadelphia's, obviously, for the sake of our podcast, that it kind of ruins any chance at getting after a quarterback, which that's what you have to do with Mahomes. If you give Mahomes time to throw, he's going to make it work. Hurts made it work too. I mean, both quarterbacks were playing their game and were electric for it. It was just a field of dreams and nightmares.
But to kind of piggyback off what you said, like you said, and the Chiefs were kind of struggling with the field conditions as well, but it didn't feel like that. And I'm not no conspiracy, nothing of that sort, right? I just feel like the Chiefs were so much more prepared for what they were encountering than the Eagles were. Like Jalen having to switch his cleats out, like it just felt like the Eagles were kind of like, okay, this shouldn't be an issue, but just in case. But the Chiefs were like, no, let's avoid any issues with this situation. And it's just like, go ahead.
Just to interject real quick. I mean, I think part of that too is just a schematic difference in the two teams. Like when you look at what the Eagles do offensively, there wasn't an issue, right? Like, yes, Jalen Hurts was changing out his cleats and several other guys in the offense were as well. But, they really they figured it out and they went ahead. Now, when you talk about, with, and I don't know what they put into Patrick Mahomes' bloodstream, after that ankle injury there.
Juice.
But whatever the case happened, like they really just made the proper adjustments at halftime. And, I think that, that does prove to your point a certain degree about the preparedness, but the team looked prepared to start the game. It's just that they weren't prepared to finish the game. And that's the most troubling factor of it all, except the saving grace, of course, being that Gannon did in fact stay in Arizona. But as far as the field conditions not affecting Kansas City, like their rushers, they get such a more power pass rushing scheme right up the middle. Of course, you have Chris Jones, who is bouncing around all over the place, but can rush up the middle as well. Frank Clark. They're just not the finesse team defensively that the Eagles are. And then offensively, it's just, when you have Patrick Mahomes, like you can just put out bums like Juju Smith-Schuster out there, and they're gonna, honestly, he didn't even make many plays during that game, but they're going to do enough, the bare minimum. That's all it takes. Yeah. You have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. That's basically all you need to run an efficient offense in the NFL.
And you know what's wild about that holding call is like, it took me to a moment where, and for me, like I grew up on basketball. That was my first love, right? I love that Allen Iverson age, the Kobe Bryant, the Tracy McGrady, the Vince Carter. Like that was everything to me. I grew out of love with basketball the moment LeBron became LeBron. The moment the NBA became for LeBron. Like, and when I say that is, if you look at that play where Juju's getting held, right? Pat Mahomes is bringing attention to it. And if the face of the league is saying, hey, this is happening, you're going to get the call 9 times out of 10. Just like LeBron. If he's saying that something's happening, he's going to get the call 9 times out of 10. And it was just like, okay, shit, like, this is really happening. Like, we're really going to just call it, like, you're going to call the game. Like, I don't know, like, it sucked. But I get it. And to the extent of what the Chiefs did, like, I personally feel like they kind of took the game out of Mahomes' hands a little bit, because they relied on Pacheco. They relied on a lot of the short stuff, the media routes, and that one call, like Juju wasn't going to catch that if it wasn't called a hold. Like that at the end zone, like he wasn't going to catch that, and you could see that Mahomes just wasn't himself. But I do agree. Like at the end of the day, like the Chiefs, they adjusted. The Chiefs were better prepared. It just showed, like, hey, their experience. Andy Reid is experienced. Steve Spagnuolo is experienced. Jonathan Gannon is a dud. Nick Sirianni needs to learn. But at the end of the day, like that's what this all was, right? This was a teach moment for a team that their nucleus is locked in for the next 5 to 6 years. Their nucleus is going to be that strong for the next 5 to 6 years. But who's not locked in is Jonathan Gannon, right? So we did talk a little about that in the beginning, where they left him in Arizona. And here's my question about everything, right? Jonathan Gannon interviewed, how he told him to stay, blah, blah. I'm pretty sure how he knew he was going to get the job. Do you think this creates now friction between between Sirianni and Howie, where it's kind of like, this was your guy that you brought in, and this guy failed us in the biggest stage of all the NFL?
No, I don't think so. I think in the overall picture of things, like everything is still pretty, successful. And I don't think that, this is a poor reflection of Sirianni, because Sirianni still did a lot to bring this roster from what it was to a Super Bowl contender in a short amount of time, sort of the same way that Peterson did. So I don't look at it in a way where Howie's coming down on Sirianni because of Gannon.
Any way that you argue that, it's just like a simple chain of screaming fallacy where, like, okay, but you hired Nick Sirianni and you knew who, he ideally wanted to bring in as the new members of his staff. So, you are liable as well. So, you wonder if Jeff Lurie's having that conversation with Howie Roseman, about like, hey, what were we thinking bringing in this guy who just can't adjust, which should be, and it's so painfully, especially as someone who covers the Sixers, like primarily, but to watch another coach who cannot and will not make adjustments was absolutely the worst way to watch the Eagles lose a Super Bowl. But I don't think that there's any animosity between Howie and Sirianni. I think that they both realize that this is the public opinion of both of these guys has never been higher than it is right now. And they should not be looking to do anything to mess up that balance, because they're riding high together. Hopefully that doesn't change anytime soon.
I think my thoughts just stemmed from the back in the day issue with Peterson, right? Where it's kind of like Peter wanted to bring his guys, and then Lurie stepped in and Roseman stepped in. They want to bring their guys, and they want to copy this, that, and third. But I do get that to a certain extent. They are heavily in the public eye right now, especially at this moment where you lost Gannon, you lost Shane Steichen. We know Brian Johnson has been the favorite to get the OC position, but they had to go through the motions of, interviewing people. But defensively, I mean, do you guys have a favorite guy that should be a shoe-in, or are we kind of just do we think they should stick in house?
I think there's all right if they do stick in house, right there. So I've just been doing a little bit of research, obviously, just before we did this podcast. One name sticks out for in-house, and I don't know how everyone else feels. So maybe Brian, you want to go ahead and in a little bit more of detail. What are we thinking about Tracy Rocker, defensive line coach?
I actually have not read up on him at all.
I haven't read up on them all. Okay, so
not at all.
basically, he joined Sirianni's staff in 2021. It's his second coaching job, and it looks like he's been coaching for 30 plus years, but mostly at the college level. So he'll be going from a position coach, more so. Not necessarily in the same profile that Brian Johnson would be, but as far as being a candidate, I look at the defensive line and how they play, and I look at that being one of the strengths of our defense, and that does kind of speak to Tracy Rocker.
He's the father of Kumar Rocker, the pitcher that the Mets
for the Mets.
What
He's the father.
Yeah, I remember them bungling that deal. Yeah,
I remember that crap. Go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, listen, on the offensive side, Brian Johnson, I love that internal hire, as a potential candidate for hire. Defensively, I don't mind, the idea of Denard Wilson. I think I think he's a very good option. When we're talking about names that aren't as popular, because, there's been really two names that have been thrown around. Well, three names, if I'm including Vance Joseph, but I don't think that they're going to pursue Joseph. I hope that they don't, rather, because I think that's just kind of like just wanting the exact opposite of what Gannon was, like almost like to a fault. So it's just ignoring him. There's two other guys that a lot of people are talking about, but if I'm looking outside of there, like Gerard Mayo is actually a guy that I wouldn't mind, like one bit. Like the way that he has just so fastly written, like this could be the next, like what people thought Gannon was in terms of like a wonder kid kind of person, like that could be Gerard Mayo, like the way that he's flying up, people's opinions board. He applied for and was interviewed for the head coaching position with the Philadelphia Eagles.
And he blew him away.
Get it ultimately.
Is he still in New England?
I think he is, isn't he?
He was, yeah. He was extending a long-term deal. He was about to, but it looks like that he'll be available to still go to other teams.
Yeah, current linebacker coach for the New England Patriots. So still in New England, still doing his thing. Not a D coordinator yet, and he's someone who I think can take this. Like you imagine, like him coaching the Kobe Dean. Like, I mean, you're talking about like turning that guy into a superstar. I think, and I think that he has the perfect balance of aggression, which yes, Philadelphia does want out of their defense, but at the same time, not getting lost in it and having that cerebral ability to kind of just understand when and when not to have that aggressive style of defense. So Gerard Mayo is like the kind of underdog candidate, if you will, that I would consider. But there's a few good names, if you ask me.
A lot of people
are
actually
think that Sirianni and Mayo would clash.
I'm not overly worried about it.
I don't think they would because of the Bill Belichick style. Like, Bill Belichick commands a certain structure with his coaching staff, right? Like, you never see anybody step out of line, anybody talk out their ass or that sort. So when you're already when that's already built into you, when that's already kind of like taught to you per se, right? I think that you just carry that for the rest of your career.
Okay.
Well, the thing I think is like it's tough for me to like. I could see a certain type of coach kind of having issues with Sirianni. I don't think Mayo is one of those coaches because you see like two sides of Sirianni. Like there's the kind of like I'm trying to use like a kind word to describe it, but like there's a almost like unserious nature that he sometimes shows, like oftentimes during interviews and all the stuff that he got laughed at, fertilizing flowers, all that
How
stuff.
About to the end of the first half when he was kind of joking around?
Yeah, well, yeah, that too. But there's other times where he's like like he has a commanding presence sometimes too, and I think it's like that part of Sirianni that Jonathan Mayo would actually like. Gerard Mayo would really just find himself in a similar like association with, and that he would really want to just run through a wall for that guy. So
interesting thing, Albert Breer actually tweeted out saying that Mayo and Vic Fangio were the would be top targets for DC for Philly.
Really, for Philly.
He says now officially the Eagles have lost both coordinators. Brian Johnson and Kevin Patullo are qualified to replace Steichen, but Philly may have to compete to keep them with Carolina and Indy respectively. As for new DC, Vic Fangio and Gerard Mayo were the would-be top targets, and this was on February 14th.
Love Gerard Mayo. That's making Zach. That was going to be my outside candidate, so perfect.
Yeah, I didn't think he was that obvious of a candidate, at least compared, because like you think about like, and I'm just going to spoil it because you think about who's being talked about, and it's Denard Wilson, it's Vance Joseph, obviously, and then it's I can't pronounce his last name, Seattle's guy, Sean Desai, is that it?
Yeah, Desai,
like, and I love Desai, like there's I have no issue with him, honestly. Wilson, Desai, or Mayo, I'm totally cool with any one of those guys. I think for me,
I just don't want Vance Joseph. That's the only person I don't want.
Who I don't want the most is Vic Fangio, because he signed a 2-week deal with us to make us lose the Super Bowl. It'd be great to have him back.
Yeah. Vic Fangio, that obviously didn't work out.
I'm
sorry. No, I was just had to say that.
I forget. Do we play Arizona next year?
Yes.
Do we play Miami next year?
Quick.
It's a revenge tour because we got Kansas City, we got Buffalo, we got San Francisco, who I like to shut up on an annual basis, and whatever team you were just talking about, Arizona.
Yeah, so we got Arizona 1, 2, 3, 4, week 5. We got the Bills next year. Oh, we do play the Dolphins. Look at that. Oh man.
Oh yeah, them too. Yeah,
for sure.
That's gonna be the Eric Reese revenge game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and guess what? We play the Patriots too, so Gerard Mayo
can
face his whole team.
Don't like them. Play Dallas twice. Don't like them.
I think you bring up a very, very phenomenal point about bringing in Mayo. I think bringing in Mayo and keeping Wilson, Rallis, and keeping Tracy Rocker, like just keep everybody that's the position coaches in place and bring Mayo. I think it'll be phenomenal. Like you're asking for a guy who's as energetic as Sirianni, but it's kind of like the bully version, right? The guy that the no nonsense kind of guy, and that's that's what's needed. Like I feel like Jonathan Gannon was the guy who shopped at Oakley like 5 times a week just to look good on camera on Sundays, and never did anything. Like he's the guy that never did his job and got freaking promoted. Like that's exactly who Jonathan Gannon is.
He was the guy that put his name on the group project at the end.
Yeah, just wrote his name on the paper. That's it. Didn't do nothing.
I still can't get over how the team was bamboozled by a guy who clearly could not coach, and then was just like, oh well, how do you expect me to coach without players? And then they get great players, and he's like, see, I did a great job. Like
the Chip Kelly of defenses.
And then the moment that there's like any kind of not controversy, but any time of like resistance, like in the Super Bowl, then he can't adjust. Like you cannot have a repeat of that. That's the biggest thing, is that you cannot have someone as, I'm just gonna say it, weak-minded as Jonathan Gannon was during the Super Bowl. Like that above anything else is what you have to avoid.
And it especially sucks because again, that was a winnable, championship. So
that was very winnable.
Super Bowl. It was in their hands. Like they had.
You do not say that often. That it was a very winnable Super Bowl,
especially against Mahomes.
Especially against Mahomes and Andy Reid, one of the greatest coaches of all time. Already, like if he has a regular career, Patrick Mahomes will have been one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time.
Yep.
Like you going against that tandem. You have a winnable game, a game that you were dominating in the first half after giving away a touchdown off a turnover. Like,
yeah,
I'm getting riled up again.
So
but you know what I'm getting at.
let's cool down for a little bit. I mean, Jay Fizz is in the chat and has questions, right? First question. Also, do you guys feel that with a new DC coming in and new rush, if new players on that side going heavy minded on offense with free agency and draft would be the way to go? I don't think they need to add anything offensively.
Third wide receiver.
That's exactly what I was saying. And you guys may be against this, right? But I personally think third wide receiver should be Mecole Hardman. I think that's what they should go for because you're killing two birds with one stone. So he's third wide receiver. He's got the speed, right? But you boasted up your special teams just by having him on the roster.
Yeah, I don't hate that either. You know, it's funny. I heard someone even just earlier today mention who's the Colts guy? Paris Campbell.
That wouldn't be bad.
And I kind of think of that as like a similar thought process there. I kind of like Mecole Hardman, more. I'll say because this is the thing is that you have to either attack two angles, starting offense as a third wideout and special teams, or the alternative is that you have to get a guy who just absolutely will not have the mental errors of dropping the ball like Kes Watkins has had, like Nelson Aguilar over the years has had. Like,
how do you
you need a guy who's like Greg Ward, but with size and athleticism. Like that's what you're looking for.
And speed. They need speed because Devontae Smith is not a deep threat, right? But going back to Quez Watkins, like how do you not just let that ball fall in the breadbasket while in your stride? Why are you diving when if you just took one more step and had your hands out, that would have fallen right in the breadbasket?
There's been a still frame going around, and I forget if it was. Correct me if I'm wrong. It may have been Devonta Smith, but was it a Quez Watkins? That defensive holding that was not called. That image has been floating around. Have you guys seen that?
That was the Quez Watkins one when he dove. When he dove, when he dove the cornerback or the safety, whoever was covering him, like literally just had him almost by the collar. It was
I mean, so right obviously there. Like that affects it somehow, but like you're 100% right. Like even still, like there's not if you're feeling that contact, draw a flag.
Yeah, like, just go in stride and it's gonna draw a flag.
Yeah, like if you're gonna make a stupid, ugly ass play anyway, you might as well do it drawing a flag. Like that's honestly it.
I'm done with the Quez Watkins foolery.
What about so this is going to be probably dumb because I'm not really sure of cap space, things like that, and how much money you would want to spend on a third wide receiver. But what's the availability, do you think, of getting like a Michael Thomas?
I don't think that he solves
his relevancy is kind of failed where I don't think he would be expensive.
But I mean, I don't know.
You're running probably just Brown and Smith alternatively in the slot that I'm guessing, right?
Yeah.
No, wait. Thomas will be in the slot because he's the slot receiver. I mean, that's his specialty.
I mean, you really can alternate anybody through the slot.
I don't even know what he is anymore. That's my thing. Yeah. Like, I feel like you don't go above the radar for offense, right? You have AJ Brown, you have Devontae, going for Mecole, going for low key guys who don't need to be productive. You just got to show up. You got to do your thing, right? Players like that, you can honestly get them on a 2-year deal for like 10 mil or 11 mil, whatever case may be, or get them on a 1-year deal, one-year deal still. Like a guy like Hartman's coming off injury, where injured on IR for the Super Bowl, that couldn't play, and he just rock with that. I think the focus this offseason is going to be defensively. It's going to be like you're losing a lot of guys.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the first thing is who do you retain, right? So you're looking. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson seems to be the clear top candidate on players to return. As well, he should be. You'd think that they would have interest in, re-signing Javon Hargrave, James Bradbury if you can, but honestly, probably not. That's probably not going to be their top target. On top of that, Fletcher Cox is almost certainly gone. I don't see him taking a hometown discount because that's just kind of not been his MO, throughout history. So you're looking at losing, and you have to renegotiate with Brandon Graham. So you're looking at.
You're losing a lot of players.
A lot of players. Your TJ Edwards and
They're
Kaiser
not
White are
paying.
both free
Yeah,
agents.
I saw somebody put out there that you pay TJ Edwards 4 years, 48 mil. They're not gonna pay $10 million for a linebacker.
4
No.
years, 48 million. No,
No.
not after that Super Bowl
Nah,
performance.
hell
That's
no.
not
Like
happening.
you go into Kobe Dean, you re-sign Kaiser White.
Yes.
You have a
Yes.
a young core of linebackers, right? You draft what you
Yeah.
got to draft. But I think the focus, like you gotta, like we're losing. You mentioned we're losing Fletcher Cox. We're losing a lot of guys, honestly. But the focus has to be to rebuild that defensive line interiorly, right? If you're going Javon Hargrave, Jordan Davis, and you got to get a third guy outside of Millen Williams that could be, extremely productive.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan
One
of
name
Miles
real
Murphy,
quick
too.
to go back to the wide receiver conversation, because there is a guy who he is a free agent. He has a lot of experience in the slot.
I haven't played that in so many years, man. Stop,
Well, I'm just saying, like he has a lot of experience. He's almost as good as Brian, of course. He has a lot of experience being, the after the second best receiver on his own team. But Juju Smith-Schuster is also available.
Dude, he wouldn't even know where. After his cheesesteak opinions, no, he's not allowed.
I'm pretty sure AJ Brown would annihilate him the moment he stepped into
I don't think he'd make it through training camp. He wouldn't make it through OTAs if he showed up to OTAs.
We don't.
Not,
TikTok boy, not allowed.
Yeah, for sure.
This is
I think the focus will be the defense.
But this one, I mean, and I have a wild defensive trade idea, right? But offensively, like trading for a Brandon, not a bad idea. I mean, they've been enamored with him for so long. But defensively, right? Just go down a rabbit hole, right? If the Eagles are losing James Bradbury, and say they're looking to invest the first round picks into the defensive line, right? Defensive end, defensive tackle. Do you tempt the LA Rams by dangling a first round pick or a second round pick in their eyes for Jalen Ramsey? Even though the cap hit is probably I think like 16 or 17 mil, agree to restructure and bring him on. Because listen, Darius Slade has probably two good years at max, right, left in him. Jalen Ramsey's 28 years old. I mean, those 2 years could cover if you draft a cornerback in the later rounds, or if you develop a Josh Jobe, if you develop a Zach McPherson.
What are the other things that you think you can get before you trade that capital?
I mean, I think you could probably sign Jonathan Jones. I think he's a free agent. He's a cornerback.
No, I mean, like, what are you looking at in the draft? What are you looking to do in the draft before you get rid of that capital for Jalen Ramsey?
So I think you could get away with getting rid of the 30th pick, keep the 10th pick, and draft a defensive end like a Miles Murphy, or if Jalen Carter happens to fall down all the way to 10, can you go with Jalen Carter?
So you're just saying trade one of your and the worst position of your first round picks.
Yeah, you don't give up a haul. You pull off AJ Brown. You don't give. If it's going to cost a haul, I don't want them to do it.
If they're going to sell that light,
I don't think they're going to sell that light either.
But the thing is, either they sell him or they cut him.
That's fair too, though. I mean, you might as well get something out of it.
Yeah, if you're going to cut the guy,
I'm not giving up 10, but if he'll do it for 30, I'd consider it.
Yeah, 30
again, not knowing the cap implications, so pending that. But yeah, I would
of course, very light on that information myself.
Because again, our Super Bowl window is now. And, it's a little more extended than other teams because Jalen's so young, but we want to get in there before the, before the extension kicks in, assuming that they do come to an agreement on there, which it definitely sounds like they will. And that'll be north of $50 million a year. So you have to capitalize this season. You just have to.
Isn't it weird? Like, I'm perfectly fine with paying Jalen Hurts like money in the world.
As comfortable as I am paying any quarterback over $50 million, I'm that comfortable paying Jalen Hurts. I'm very comfortable.
Yeah, like just take my money.
And listen, I hope he takes less, personally, and makes it up in endorsements for sure. But that being said, he certainly earned it, and I have no problem doing that because he's at the top of the, listen, he's a top. I would call him right now a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. I think it's him, Mahomes, and Burrow. Or the top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL.
So I put that. I agree like that the other day. It was my thing is it's Mahomes, Burrow, Jalen, and after that you put you dump a Josh Allen or a Lamar, and then Justin Herbert or even Trevor Lawrence. Like you kind of finagle between those guys, but he's better than Lamar. He's a better passer than Lamar, right?
He is.
Actually, he's a lot better than Josh Allen, a lot better than Justin Herbert, way better than Trevor Lawrence. I don't want to hear none of that BS.
Yeah.
But Joe
Josh
Burrow,
Allen had a down year. Like Josh Allen,
Yeah.
like he's in that mix. Like, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but like I think Hurts passed him this year,
Yeah,
and now it's
I
up to
completely
Allen
agree.
to take that back, and we'll see if he can.
Just on a sidebar of that particular conversation, where is Aaron Rodgers ranked anymore?
He's in the dark
very
cave.
much further down the line.
Is he a top 10 quarterback in this league in either one of your lists?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, I would put him as like 7 or 8, honestly. But
Okay, I was thinking
that's
about
just-
that too. Like,
that's just
probably
basing
after
it
you
off
guys
of-
said Lawrence, I'm like, well, Lawrence and Rodgers got to be there somewhere. But I think
Yeah.
Rodgers would be ahead of Lawrence for me.
I think I'd go with Mahomes.
I would
Burrow,
put.
Hurts.
I might put Lawrence ahead
Of who?
Yeah.
Of Rodgers?
of Rodgers.
See,
I mean, I think you're going heavy upside, and I'm just saying
Yes.
like what I saw this season.
and with Rodgers too, like,
Like
he's
I
still in the
guess what I
league.
saw
You
this
can't,
season's tough too.
you
Because
can't
it's also
discount-
like I didn't see Rodgers play the whole season.
and you can't discount his body of work at the end of the day. Like he's
No, for
massive all the
sure, but
time.
you also can't discount his personality off the field.
Dude, he's a nutcase.
He's kind of crazy. Like,
Maybe what I'll do is here's what we should do before the next podcast. We should lock ourselves like in a room for like I don't know 5 hours, dark, and then come up with 10 quarterbacks in the list, and then that's when we share them.
Should we like write it like blindly on the wall with chalk or something?
No,
like
just
that,
think
or-
about it, right? Take a mental picture.
just think about it. Don't write any of it down, and then just right off the top of your head, after being locked in a dark room for 5 hours.
we'll call it a retreat.
I'm pretty sure that's
5
not
hour
what I'm
retreat.
thinking about when I'm in there.
Why don't we go into immersion tanks and come up with 10 quarterbacks? They don't have to be good, just any 10 quarterbacks. And then
Oh
we
my
just should
God.
have the list of quarterbacks we have when we come out of the immersion tanks.
All right, so let's go down
Have
the
you
list,
seen
right?
Stranger Things? It's gonna be something kind of like that.
Let's go down. Let's go down the list. Pat Mahomes, Joe
Sure.
Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen.
Sure.
All right, after Josh, Lamar,
Eh,
Justin. Oh,
I got Herbert before Lamar, but okay.
No, I got Lamar.
Ooh,
I got
okay.
to put a hard pass on that. Listen.
I'm
Herbert-
putting Herbert before Lamar. Just
Herbert's getting dangerously close to Kirk Cousins territory. Let me tell you that right now. Okay.
I don't know, man. I think he's way better than Kirk Cousins and still has like a lackluster defense at the end of the day.
but he has. Okay, all right. So
He's
Lamar and
got a
Justin
lot
Herbert
of
right
great
there, right?
weapons.
So
I mean, yeah, you can
Let's just put them at the
interchange
same
them at
because they're
5
not
and
the point of the
6. but
conversation.
You can interchange them at 5 and 6, but on my list, Herbert's
Okay.
5.
Okay.
all right. After that, 7 we're going Trevor Lawrence
Eh.
or Aaron Rodgers.
I'd go Trevor Lawrence.
I got to think a little bit harder because it's like, okay, before Trevor Lawrence, I think I would
Aaron
go.
Rodgers.
I think I would actually go like I don't know, man. This is tough. This is really tough for me. I'm just kind of going by feel. I think I would go Daniel Jones.
All right, Eric, get off the podcast.
I think I would go Daniel Jones. Like before
Speaking
that.
of Brian's heart, picking a Giants quarterback there. The $35
go with
million man
Dude,
himself.
I'm sorry,
Daniel
but
Jones.
this season there were times when I was like, yo, like this dude might be able to
No.
ball. And
Hell
then he threw the
no.
ball to the Eagles. I was like, this dude can ball.
I think
So
Daniel
here's
Jones
the
like
thing,
8 or
like,
9.
Is Daniel Jones a
Jay
top
Fizzle
10
cut his
quarterback?
mic.
Like, I think
No,
that
man.
you can argue that he was around a top 10 quarterback this year. But
Mhm.
here's the thing: is like a lot of guys just sucked this year. Like it was a
A lot of
bad year
teams
for
suck
Russell
this
Wilson.
year.
It was a bad
Yeah,
year
Russell
for Derek
Wilson's
Carr.
like
It was at
like
least
the-
a
he's the
down
worst,
year for
dude.
Aaron Rodgers. Like this
never
is a
seen-
different. Tua Tagovailoa was like dead for half the season.
Oh, I
Like
forgot
it's
about
just
Tua.
like it's tough to like evaluate those like middle ground quarterbacks.
That's what
Dak
I'm
was awful.
saying. That's what I'm saying. Like it's tough for me to evaluate this middle ground.
okay.
So there's
So-
like 5 to 7 where I'm just like, I don't know where they stand. They could be
Time
like
out, time out,
7,
time
8, 9. Like
It's tough for you to evaluate, so you just chose chaos and anarchy by choosing Daniel Jones to be within that top 10 like that.
well, it's
Like,
not Dak Prescott.
Well, so here's the problem: is well, Geno Smith's above Daniel Jones. That's how
See, I was
crazy
gonna
this
say,
list is.
I was just thinking that too. I was like, what about Geno Smith? And then what about Kirk Cousins? And then what about
okay. All right. So we're at 7, right? 7. We said Trevor Lawrence or Aaron Jones. I mean, Aaron Jones. Aaron
put
Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers at 6. Put Trevor Lawrence at 7. Why don't we do that?
No, but we got Justin Herbert at 6, so we're at 7, 8.
Oh, fuck Herbert. Yeah,
So
okay.
9 and 10,
put,
right?
Put Trevor Lawrence / Aaron Rodgers at 7, 8.
yes?
Okay, so 9 and 10, right? We have Kyler Murray out there. We have Kirk Cousins.
Oh fuck! I
We
forgot
have
about
Dak
Kyler.
Prescott. We have Russell Wilson. We have Daniel Jones.
Bro, Jared Goff was good this year. Can I
We
just
have
say
Jared
that?
Goff.
Like,
Yes,
Yeah, let's put Jared
absolutely.
Goff in there for sure. All right, Jared Goff at 9.
Okay.
I'm sneaking that in right now.
Then you also have Matt Stafford out there. You also have
Okay, we can cool it on the Matt Stafford. Like he won a ring and he's done. Like that's fine. Like
Hey, he got his pizza. All right.
oh wait,
chill.
hey,
Did
we
get
got
his
Derek
pizza,
Carr
yeah.
out there as well. Like Derek Carr's out there.
Derek Carr's out there somewhere. He's either
He's
in
not-
New York
yeah,
or New
I'll tell you
Orleans,
where
but
he's
he's
not.
somewhere.
Tell you where he's not at.
Dude,
not
Raiders
in-
Twitter
he's not in Las
is just
Vegas.
absolutely dying over that whole situation. Like somebody I was following got
You
in
know
a
he
whole
got.
fight.
You know, like half for San Francisco is like, what do you mean Brock Purdy's not top 5?
Oh wait, what about Brock Purdy? Is he on our top 10?
I need to see a second year of
All right,
confident
no,
play
hold
out
on.
of Brock
I'm not
Purdy
going to
before
turn
I'm
this
ready
thing
to do
into a
that.
whole like.
Okay.
fucking just hate
How about Mac
mongering.
Jones? No, Mac
What do you
Jones.
mean? What do you mean? How about Mac Jones? How about no? Like
All right, who's 10? Is it Kirk Cousins? Or are we just declaring? So if Kirk Cousins is 10,
who was 9? Was that Jared Goff?
that was Jared Goff.
No,
All right, so
you know who's 10? If 10 can be healthy, it's Tua.
You're right. Yes, I'm cool with that. I'm
I would
perfectly
say
fine
If
with
10
that.
can be
probably-
healthy, it's Tua.
Because
I would
Tua's
say
Tua
gonna
has
be
yeah.
to
And
be
then
there.
11, you got Cousins. 11/12, you got Cousins, Geno Smith. I actually like the way Geno played better this year,
Me too.
but that's just 1 year. That's the
need to
only
see
thing
more.
working
So
against.
if we're
Geno.
in 12 right now, Eric, where the hell you get Daniel Jones in top 10?
Didn't I just say like he was? Wait, we didn't we mention him in the top 10 right now on this? No.
To be fair, he only had 5 interceptions. The problem is he only had 15 touchdowns.
Honestly,
So,
where do we get confused?
I
do we
don't
get- hold
think
on.
we got confused, man.
We
No,
didn't
we
get
did.
confused. You got
We
confused.
did. Where did I say that he was going to be? Like 7 or 8? Is that what I said?
Yeah,
I
but we
think you
said
had him like after Rodgers somewhere.
I did have him like right after Rodgers. But here's the thing. I did mention also like briefly after saying that there was like 5 to 7 quarterbacks that I just don't know what to do with. And
That's true.
you can just kind of say like between 8 to like 13, he's somewhere between there. I don't know.
Mm.
I think
Like
it's
there's a
13.
gray area and Daniel Jones is in the gray area.
Daniel Jones is the gray area.
There's a definite gray area. I don't know what to do with Daniel Jones, but he's in that gray area.
He's in
somewhere.
that weird pocket. Oh god, that was a good laugh. Oh
Jay
yeah.
Fizzle
So,
hasn't been so mad ever since I picked the Vikings to win in week 2.
oh god.
Yo, you know that actually. Never mind. I'll tell you guys after the show. But that actually came up in my defense the other day. Yeah, I'll tell you guys after the show.
Okay, so we went over the Super Bowl loss, right? We went over everything that happened, what's gonna
Yeah.
happen as well. Usually we take a big bit of a hiatus after playoffs, right? We take a bit of a break talking Eagles. We're not gonna take a huge break, right? We're gonna kind of just mellow out. We'll still give you guys content. One thing that we are going to announce tomorrow, and pay attention clearly for the whoever's in the chat right now. We're gonna start running giveaways. I stumbled upon a couple of Jalen Hurts rookie cards that I feel like we could, give away to people to us all year, right? The rules for the giveaway will be on our Twitter tomorrow, and it'll last for 24 hours. Maybe we'll do one a week. I think I have like 4 or 6 in here. And then it's more of an appreciation token, right? It's still going on, Eric. We truly appreciate you guys, and really just rocking with us this year. Huge shout out to Eric and Zach, who kind of just came on board and just rolled with the punches and became part of the Flippin' Birds family. Shout out to Morgan, who's in Canada. So, and yeah, we really appreciate all the support. We're gonna continue to give you guys as much content as possible. We'll cover free agency. We'll cover the hiring of the OC and DC as well, and then we'll talk Wild Eagle stuff. It's gonna be a good offseason. I'm overconfident of how good of offseason we're gonna have with Flipping the Birds. But at the same time, we will take a break to give time back to our families, because that's the first thing, right? But again, huge thank you to you, Eric and Zach. Like, seriously, guys, could not do the pod this year without you guys. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart, right? You guys, the people who are listening, do not know the work that these guys do on a daily basis. Zach edits for the Sixers. Eric edits for the Flyers, and I'm convinced that Eric does not sleep because I get retweets from PSN notifications from 1 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning.
It's a lot, dude. It's like it's Flyers, it's Philadelphia Wings.
It's Flyers
if they
after
bring
dark.
back the AFL and the Philadelphia Soul, I'm trying to finagle my way back to that. So we'll be able to talk practice squad wide receivers.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, huge thank you to you guys. And again, we'll take a little bit of break, but we're gonna make sure we're consistent on all social media platforms, and we'll give you guys little tidbits here and there to talk Eagles, right? Because at the end of the day, season's over, but our season's not over, right?
Oh, it's never over. It's always on the beat. It's just like Philly Talk Radio. It's 100% Birds all the time. It's just we're gonna take a little bit of a break until March.
Yep,
but
100%.
Well, with that being said, Brian, you want me to shut down the show with the Go Birds?
Eric, you can't ask
because I'm ready to shut down the show with the Go
crew.
Birds. I don't want a premature bird, Zach. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
That's true. That's probably why we lost in the Super Bowl.
Well, you did premature Daniel Jones.
The whole team did premature birds in the first half. That was the problem for the Super Bowl.
I recovered
way
in
too
like
excited.
The third week. I recovered in the third week. It took about 14 extra weeks to recover for me, but I did it. They didn't have enough time. That's why Gannon, he Gannon premature birds.
Dang. Somebody prematured Gannon.
Yeah, I think Gannon prematured a lot of things.
Dang, I just love how we got to the bottom of that in the last 45 seconds of this, Jesus. All right. Well, hey, until March, everybody, that's Brian.
Yeah, we'll leave you with that.
Yeah, that's it. I'm leaving y'all with that. Until March, that's Brian over there. He's a Mets fan. That's Zach. He's not a Mets fan. And I'm Eric. I'm an Eagles fan, but I watch hockey too. So go Birds.
Go Birds.
Yes,